Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm with Katie Finn at Desert Wine Shop in La Quinta in Southern California. We're going to talk about the best tips to open up a retail wine shop. We're talking about her days as a sales rep. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the current trends happening in the wine industry. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of HospitaliTV. I'm your host, Raphael Peterson. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you for joining us. This is a show for the hospitality industry. The goal here is to interview some badass people who have amazing insights that we can learn from so we can improve ourselves, improve those around us, and make this a bigger and better industry. So that's the goal. I have one ask is that if you please enjoy anything from the show, if you find anything to be of value to you, that you share the show, you share it with somebody who you think might need it. I'm humbled and fortunate to run into some of you out there who comment that they saw the show and that they were excited about an episode. I need you to share it. We get more traction that way, we get bigger guests, and everybody benefits from it. So please share the show. Now for today's episode, I'm sitting here with Katie Finn. How you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to do this.
Me too.
Been talking about it for a little bit.
Yeah.
You are the owner-operator of Desert Wine Shop here in La Quinta in Southern California. And we obviously do business together with our company for several years. You and I think, for 3 now.
Right.
And I have to say, I got to give you the kudos. You're one of the people that I have the most fun with because you have a great palate. You're super fun to taste wine with. You know what you like, you know what you don't. You don't waste anybody's time. You're very straight to the point. But I learn a lot from you as well.
Oh, thank you.
You're the type of person that it makes me up my game because I know I have to come in prepared. I can't come in kind of knowing some of the wines and I know I need to know. I always get excited and I need to just come in ready to rock. So
awesome. Yeah, and you do. You always come in super prepared. I always feel a little bad and guilty when I throw a question and I get that deer in headlights oh crap. And it's usually such an obscure, stupid question, but It's just my own geekdom that wants to know. It's not like I'm trying to, put the screws to you and test you.
It never feels that way.
Oh, good. Because a lot of times it's, my brain just kind of goes to that direction of, oh, gee, I wonder, if this is some sort of clonal selection from whatever. and it's I don't know.
I think they're very fair questions versus a super obscure data point, what's the minimum alcohol level allowed in this appellation? It's not going to affect anybody's buying decision for the most part.
Right.
So before, as we get into this, I was thinking about something on the drive over here, and I just wanted to give you kudos. I feel like when we're in the shop and we're tasting, somebody comes in, you're always so good at welcoming people into the shop. And you make it a point to kind of stop what you're doing politely towards us, which is another, great data point. And then you welcome the person in and make sure that they've been seen and acknowledged, and you offer to help them in any way that you can. And I just got to say, even though some people might think that, what's he talking about? That's such a small point. I feel like it's a point that's missed in a lot of businesses these days. So either you walk into a business and they're distracted, or they didn't even know that you came in, or they just act kind of what do you want without even saying anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just a very interesting thing. I think that I reference it in the context of working in restaurants forever, and I always telling the hostesses, you guys have the most important job here is greeting the customer as they come in, because it sets the tone for a great experience. It just automatically makes the person feel welcome and seen, which I think is humongous. It lets them know that, hey, we see you, we're welcoming you in here, we're going to take care of you tonight. And I just compare it to so many places that don't do that, and it's very noticeable. And you've made it a point, from everything I've seen, everybody just feels very welcome as soon as they come in here.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing that. It's a big deal to me. And I spend more time here at the shop than I do my own house. And so for me, this is my home. And when people come in here, I want them to feel that gracious hospitality, like you are coming into my house. I'm going to treat you the same way I would treat any guest. I find that, people want that acknowledgement that they've made the effort to make this stop. I say to my team all the time, people could buy a bottle of wine at the grocery store when they're there picking up a loaf of bread or their gallon of milk. When they come here, they've made a conscious effort to make another stop, to make another errand. And let's appreciate that. Let's show them that matters to us, that we acknowledge that, we care about that. And it's not, being in anyone's face or hovering, because I always say, hey, welcome in. If we can show you anything, let me know. I'm Katie, if I can help you. I don't want to hover, just all these little words, but it just kind of, my goal is when someone walks in here, they want to breathe and not feel uptight and concerned about, oh, am I going to ask a stupid question, or, am I bothering the owner? I mean, I have told you it's my biggest pet peeve when I've gone into businesses and I feel like my presence is annoying them. Like, I can take my business anywhere.
I still don't understand why I walk into so many places where it's kind of like, yeah. Oh. Like, what do you need? Like, almost like, why are you here?
Yeah, why did you darken my doorstep?
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. And I, it's something so small that's so impactful. It's that first impression when somebody walks in, that, what a novel idea that you want them to be comfortable and happy and at ease.
Right.
Like when someone comes into your home, do you kick them in the shins and, tell them to bugger off? No, you welcome them in and you ask them to have something to drink. And that's the other thing we do here too, that I want people to know that this is a very laid back environment. I think boutique wine shops can especially get the rap that we're stuffy, snobby, snooty, highbrow, pretentious. So people come in, we welcome them, and then I immediately say, hey, you want a splash of something while you're looking around? If you don't, you don't. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But I want people to know, yeah, you're welcome to have a taste of something. I've got always stuff open behind the bar, and I'm happy to let someone kind of take a little sip, and then that starts the dialogue.
Yeah. What's interesting is I've noticed the opposite too, where the people, like in maybe some natty wine bars or something, where there's some people can be so cool for school. They it's almost like the opposite of being pretentious and all over you, that they're just like, don't acknowledge you, whatever, if you need something, I'll probably be around, but maybe I won't. And maybe we can find something in the middle. I don't know. It's interesting. Not to harp too long on this, but I think it's like, who wouldn't want to be acknowledged and welcomed into an establishment, right? Is that weird? Like, everybody does. Is that needy? I don't think so. I don't think you'd find a person who'd be like, yeah, don't do that. I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. I think it makes a really big difference. And I think, again, I want to really drive this point home, because, again, I think the reason that we're talking about this is that hopefully, whether any type of business, doesn't have to be a restaurant business, people hopefully might listen to this and take a little bit of that into their own business. But I think there's so much tension going on, like, in the world too. Yeah. Like, why not just welcome people in? I think it kind of just immediately gives people a breath of fresh air, and being like, cool, there's a person who's like saying hi and they're friendly and they're smiling, and I'm going to reciprocate that back now. And I think it just sets a really great tone. I think a lot of people could really use that in their own businesses. I agree. Why not be a bright spot in someone's day? Yeah. And I mean, if that is something as stupid as being like, hey, how you doing? Yeah. Happy you're here. Yeah. It's not hard. It's not a hard. Well, you do that all the time. That's why I'm pumped to be here talking with you. Like, it's authentic, and I really enjoy that. So I just wanted to give you the kudos for all that. I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about, I want to jump into something with you, because we're hearing, or at least I'm hearing, and I'm sure you're seeing too, like on social and in magazines, even a lot of people talking about these different trends that are happening in the wine consumption part of the business. You hear that people are consuming a little bit less wine. The trends are going in different directions. They're saying wine consumption is down. I don't know, as a company, like from where I'm at, like we're still pretty consistent, had a better year than last year. So I'm trying to see where the data is. What are your thoughts on that? I think there's definitely been a sober curious movement that has happened. I don't know what really to attribute it to. It's definitely a certain demographic. I find it's, more the millennials and maybe the Gen Z, is that what they are now? Maybe it's because marijuana's legal, cannabis is legal, and so they're opting for more CBD-based products. But as far as, I think, our generation, and, upwards from there, they're still drinking their wine. For sure. It's just the younger kids. And again, I don't know if it's, my parents drink wine, therefore it can't be cool, so I'm going to do anything but drink wine, because, that's for the country club golf players who sit around and talk about their HOA dues. I don't know. But I feel like kids, maybe they don't want to have anything to do with that, section of, their life or their parents' life. And, there's been a lot of reckless things that have been said by officials, the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Surgeon General, that frankly, anybody in the wine or in the alcohol industry will tell you it's totally unfounded and not true. That all alcohol in any consumption causes all cancers.
I mean, what a reckless and sweeping statement to make. If that were true, look at the epidemic that would be happening in Europe, right? Where they drink wine all day, every day.
Right.
They live to be 100 years old.
Right, that's
you look
a good
at
point.
the blue zones, you look at the Mediterranean diets, you know, my God, if it were true, no one in my family would have lived past 30. We're Irish Canadians. I mean, my God,
Right.
whiskey flowed constantly. I mean, yes.
Very true. That's a great point.
Are there things that can, you know, exacerbate or trigger illness? Yes. And, you know, but I think once moderation leaves the conversation, we should stop having the conversation because it no longer makes sense.
Of course.
You know, what about fatty foods? What about sugar? What about, you know, numerous things that are not healthy for us that, you know, you can overdo it and consume too much and doesn't matter if that's a donut or a glass of wine.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that you're right with the generations. I think that we are seeing the lesser consumption in younger generations. And I think that's what people in the business are afraid about, right? It's like, what happens when the older folk, like us, or like me, sorry, you're doing great. They age out of the demo, right? And then the younger generations are not consuming. Then what do we do, right? I think that kind of that's the fear, maybe like what's going to happen in 10 years or something. So I don't know. I think that what are your thoughts on, you know, maybe the elitism of wine, or, you know, those older generations drinking like, you know, Growth Bordeaux, or Grand Cru, you know, different Cru Burgundy, and
I mean, listen, did we start out drinking that, or did
No.
we drink Boone's Farm
Yeah, of
and
course.
you know, Lancers or Matu or whatever we were drinking, could get our hands on? It you know, there's always been that hierarchy in wine. I don't think that it didn't affect us, so I don't know why it would affect the generations now.
I guess what I'm seeing too a lot, and for example, who did this? I think it was one of the, I think it might have been Karen McNeil or Jancis Robinson. I can't remember one of them, but they made a post, you know, talking about this and why are the younger generations feeling disconnected. And I was seeing a lot of the comments where like the younger consumers want to feel more connected with the story about the wine. It's not so much that this is a fifth growth in Bordeaux that's been passed down for generations versus, you know, this is a family of winemakers that are very conscious about the way that they're growing with wines, and everything's organic, right? Organic is such a buzz term, and which, you know, as it should be. Like they're conscious wine growers and conscious farmers who are sustainable in their wine practices, and on top of that, might have a story that will really, that the consumer, excuse me, or the buyer for that matter, who might be a younger buyer, can really relate with. And I think that there might have been a shift there. I think there's almost maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, tell me what you think, maybe kind of a rebellion to the older style of wine, and maybe the elitism that brought along with it.
You know, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I also kind of think back when we were of the novice drinking age, there was a lot more entry-level, approachable wine. Because sweet wine wasn't as taboo as it is now. You know, kind of bottom shelf wine wasn't what it is now. You know, I have very few sweet wines in the shop. Very few. Like I've got a Moscato and maybe an off-dry Riesling. But for the most part, everything I have in every price point is going to be pretty dry, fairly austere. I guess, I don't want to say serious, but not bubblegum. And, you know, things like Beaujolais Nouveau have fallen out of fashion, and things, you know, where you could get your Blue Nun or your Lancers or whatever it was that we were drinking as an entry-level wine, no longer is no longer accessible. And so honestly, if you've got a sweet tooth and you've got your choice of drinking a Jack and Coke or drinking, you know, Sauvignon Blanc from Touraine, you're not going to like the Sauvignon Blanc from Touraine. You're going to want that sweet kind of candied cocktail thing that is in vogue, and the sweet wine isn't. So maybe that's driving them away.
Yeah. You know, and another thing that I've noticed too, you know, are just the bar programs that have come up are so good. within the last 10 years. And this is just another opinion of mine, just something that I'm thinking about. But I see that a lot too in a lot of these restaurants and people that I talk to that have great bar programs. They have great overall beverage programs, and the cocktail programs are very strong as well. And I feel like it's just very fun and hard to compete when you can go sit at a bar, ask a bartender, what should I drink tonight? The bartenders are normally pretty good about it, about finding the flavor profiles that you're like. Most of these guys will just like, and I'm not recommending you do this, but I'm sure they obviously carefully curate their menus for a reason. But if you go rogue every now and then, it's like, well, you know what? I like spicy and ginger and this and that. Oh, I got something for you. I'll make it. They make it in front of you. So there's like a little mini show. And there's a real connection there. And I've always envied that as a somm. Because I'm like, man, I mean, they're like little mini chefs that are working in front of you, you know? So I think a lot of that, especially with the rise of social media and Instagram, where people want to record everything, and you're putting these pretty garnishes, and the cocktails have great colors, and there's just a lot of texture and all these things. I think that's a big competition for people in the wine industry too, especially if you are a somm working in a restaurant, and the choices of beverages for the consumer is either going to be a glass of wine, which this days is about the same as an expensive cocktail. Mm-hmm. You're looking at $15 to $25 probably in most places. And the cocktail's probably around the same price. It's like $17, $18. So you're going to pay the same amount of money. A lot of people think, I might just get a better buzz too with the alcohol.
Hey, liquor is quicker.
For sure. And it's a little show and it's fun.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're competing against that, and I think that's something to bear in mind. Like, I think that, for all you working somms out there still, like, that's something to definitely bear in mind. And even more so now than ever, we need to kind of make sure that we are creating that engagement with the guest, checking in on everybody, seeing how you can be of service to them, but making sure you're having that dialogue, because just bringing a glass of wine to somebody, there's a lot of competition against that. Yeah,
there's no flair to that.
Right.
It's part of what my passion and how I got started in wine speaks to that point is it was about the history. Mm-hmm. It was about the geography. It was about the struggle, right?
Right.
I loved hearing the stories of the struggle, South Africa, one of my favorite wine producing regions. And you think about, all the obstacles they faced. Every time they took a step forward, they took 2 steps back, right? Mm-hmm. You had the French Huguenots coming in showing the Dutch how to make wine, because they started out by fermenting their wine in the same barrels they used to brine their meat. Like, because they had no idea what they were doing.
Right.
And so then there was this progression where the wine started getting better, and then there was the Boer War, right? And then, the famine and devastation. And it was just this epic kind of push and pull of progress and declination. And then, of course, apartheid happened. And I think we tend to forget that ended, 96, 94? I mean, our recent history,
mm-hmm.
But during those times, they couldn't sell a bottle of wine to anybody, even if they wanted to. The sanctions were placed on them. And
right.
So once that was lifted, you look at the amount of progress they've made in the last 20 years, it's more than most countries have done in 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that kind of story, and it's that connection to these wines. When I find that as a somm, if you can get passionate and kind of nerdy about something like that, that lights your fire, and express that,
mm-hmm.
There is the connection that you can make with people. Because typically people want more. They want a little something other than, medium bodied with fine grained tannins.
Oh my God, yeah.
Please shoot me now.
We can't do that anymore.
No, and who cares?
Right, and that's a whole other conversation we're going to get into.
Yeah.
You're going to get me in trouble here with the quartermaster sommeliers.
I do.
Yes, and I think that at the end of the day, I want to make it clear that I am a huge fan of wine, and I think that wine needs to go with food. So especially, it's one thing if you are just in a vacuum somewhere drinking wine or a cocktail and there isn't really any food to go with it. Sure, you might just do the cocktail because it's fun and for all the reasons that we just talked about. But if you are in any type of restaurant setting, I mean, the case here is that the wines are curated towards the menu, right? What I used to do all the time too, and I know this isn't for within everybody's bandwidth to do it during service, but like I would curate little mini tastings. Hey, you guys are getting this appetizer. Say for a couple came in, right? You're going to get this appetizer. Why don't you have this mid-course? We have this crazy new mid-course appetizer, but do it as a mid-course, and then we'll roll into the steak, and I will pair some wines for you. You don't want to even drink that much? I'll split the first glass of wine for you. I'll split the second glass of wine for you, then have a bottle of red with dinner. Yeah. Like, that sounds great. And now I'm taking them on like a little mini adventure. I'm having fun with it because I get to actually use the skills of pairing wine and food.
Be creative.
Right. They're pumped. They're like, that was awesome. We didn't even know that was on the menu. I'm going to come back for that. Like, little things like that are ways to engage the guest and create something new for them.
We used to call it the limo ride. When you want to give the guests the limo ride.
Yeah.
You know, and this isn't just an Uber taking you from point A to point B.
Right.
You're giving them the experience.
Right. Yes.
I think it's important to remember, you know, you can go eat anywhere. When you go dine, it's the experience you're looking for. When people come here for the tastings, they're not just coming here to, you know, get a happy hour buzz on. You can go do that anywhere. They're coming here for the experience, right? For the guided tour, if you will.
Yeah.
And you know, without that, it's a widget. It's just a commodity. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. Very true. Okay, I want to ask you something about opening up a retail wine shop. I have a couple friends now that are
probably... Do
it! Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
I feel like every year there's somebody that I know that's opening up a retail wine shop. I feel like most Psalms that I've talked to at some point, like that's one of their dreams. Yeah, at some point I'm just going to open up my own shop. I'm going to have my own thing. So I thought, what better person obviously to ask you, that you've been in it for several years. This is your second location as well. You have a lot of experience under your belt. I want to phrase this question like this. If you could go back to your first day, or even maybe a couple months before the opening of your first shop, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself on how to open up a retail wine shop? Maybe a couple of like 2 or 3 bits of advice you would give yourself.
Gosh. You know, it was a dream of mine, right? I started in the restaurant business, then I went into wine sales, distribution. I lived in Napa and worked up there. And, you know, manifesting your own destiny in a wine shop is kind of like, oh man, you know, if instead of slinging a bag, you know, I can now be on the other side of the table. And it didn't come to me in the way that it would most people, where they sit down and they're like, oh, you know what, I'm going to draft out a business plan and execute this and that. I moved back here from Napa, 2 kids, little, and was a happy stay-at-home mom at that point. The owners of the shop, I think, had quickly learned that this is a boots-on-the-ground endeavor. This is an entrepreneurial endeavor. You can't just throw money at it, invest in it, hand the keys to the kingdom over to somebody else and expect it to run smoothly, because it hadn't. It had been basically run into the ground, and my partners at the time, weren't here. They weren't here to see the day-to-day operations. So they approached me and said, hey, you know, what do you think? Would you come in and work with us? And kind of begrudgingly did, but very quickly realized, yeah, this isn't the type of business that you can open up, start up, and let someone else man the ship. If you're going to do this, you've got to be prepared that these are 80-hour work weeks. You're here all day, every day. You can't let somebody else run the business. It's, there's just too many pitfalls, too much product that can go out the door, too much mismanagement that can happen. And frankly, in a small business like this, your reputation is everything. And if you're passionate and love it, then you've got to be the face of it. You've got to be the one that's doing the FaceTime with people, getting them connected, making them feel welcome, setting the energy and the tone. Because if you're not here and part of it, then you have no clue what's being done in your business. You don't know what vibe is being and what experience is being delivered to the guests that come in. Right. So I think if I had to tell myself something, it would be prepared to not have a lot of time for a lot else, especially while it's getting up and running. It's a boots on the ground, all hands on deck kind of thing.
Could you share any of the pitfalls that you might have had that maybe you could avoid now with what you know?
Opening too fast.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So when I moved from the first location here,
Yes.
I wanted to do it like overnight. Like I wanted to be in here. I didn't want to lose any business. I didn't want to lose any traction. I damn near killed myself and my team doing it. We moved in 3-4 days. That was a huge mistake. I should have taken my time. I should have, allowed myself 2 weeks to really fine tune the setup and where I wanted everything. But the fear was, am I going to lose business, right? Am I going to suffer attrition from the move? And, I can't shutter my doors for 2 weeks.
Right.
It's already costing me a fortune to, move into another location.
Sure.
So I foolishly convinced myself that faster was better.
Interesting. Would you do anything different looking back? Apart from the speed of, the move that you did during the opening time?
No. I think otherwise everything kind of happened the way it should have happened. I was as prepared as I could have been, minus the time. Yeah, I think the exhaustion was, it set me back anyway, right? I was so exhausted and tired and just worn to the bone after we got done that I had to kind of reset anyway.
Right,
so,
right. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's talk. We did an event here a couple months ago for some of the wine club members.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's such an important part when people have a retail wine shop, is to have a healthy, growing wine club.
Yeah.
And you had the most amazing guests that came in. I mean, they had swag. That's always a great sign. If they all had their desert wine shop shirts, everybody had different swag. They had
They
little
make
aprons.
those.
They make them themselves?
They make them themselves. I don't make apparel and sell it here with our logo or anything on it. They make
awesome.
Those things themselves.
Right.
I think it's amazing.
I think it's amazing too.
Yeah.
And like, it shows how, that's crazy. I thought that you made those for them.
No.
I thought that was maybe like, only the wine club members get this, or that's insane. So that even proves further my point that, they're so bought in.
Yeah.
Right? They're so bought into what you've created here for them. And you could see it when they were in here. Like, you felt like they were a part of something. They were very happy to be here. Some members were bringing in their friends who were visiting. They were super happy to show off the wine club to them. So, maybe give us some tips on how to grow a wine club in a successful way as part of the retail wine shop.
So it started out just as a way to create some loyalty and repeat customers, right? What it grew into, I could not have fathomed. We became kind of a cheers for people in the community. We have the faces every Tuesday and Friday, and then we get the new faces that have heard about us. The word of mouth is the best advertising that we get from that. But it's important for it to be a value, and therein lies the trickiest part about running a wine club. Is you have to ensure that it's sustainable, that it's affordable, and that people look like they're getting a great deal. So it's part of it is minding the benefits, what they're receiving that costs you money, and the benefits they receive that really don't cost you money. So for us, it's a quarterly club. We do 6 bottles that I curate, right? So you're at my mercy. Actually, funny, I had somebody say, well, what if I wanted to select the wines? Yes, that's called shopping. You can do that anytime you want. You can just walk in here and you can select 6 bottles and go have fun.
Right.
When in the wine club, I get to choose. And I include a recipe, and I include note cards, and, and we have a pickup party. And, those are the kind of tangible things that cost some money. The wine tastings that the wine club gets complimentary, that really doesn't cost anything, and yet it's such a driving force, because when they come in, they always buy wine because we've tasted them on things and they like it, they pick it up, they take it with them, and it keeps the sense of community keeps them coming here for that, right? They've developed friendships, and I mean deep friendships here. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. These are people who were complete strangers and met here at the shop, and now they're attending each other's weddings. They're attending, they're going to dinners together. They're going on vacations together. They're supporting each other through funerals and losses. And this all is outside the shop, but it was because they met and had this space to see each other twice a week, every week, where it just really, the connections really started to run deep, and it's a beautiful thing to watch.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of another thing I was going to ask you too. Is like, well, why the desert? You were in Napa, you live in different territories, and you have LA that's close by, you have sunny San Diego right down the way, and like, why'd you do it here and in this community?
I love the desert. I have moved away several times. I always come back. And I've lived in beautiful places, right? I've lived in Maui. I've lived in
We were
Napa.
in Maui at the same time.
I know. That's hard to believe.
That's so crazy.
It's a small world, a small industry too. But yeah, I've, Orange County, Newport Beach, I've lived in beautiful places, but the desert, it's magical here. And what I have found about this community specifically is it's still relatively small, in the grand urban scheme of things, but it's quite cosmopolitan for how small it is. We've got the theater, we've got the arts, we've got nature, we've got casinos and event venues, great restaurants. It's pretty thriving and active, but it's also very supportive of all the different demographics that are here. I find that unlike anywhere else I've ever lived, you have all of these different communities that come together, support each other, either philanthropically or professionally, whether that's the gay community, the retired community, the Hispanic community, the Native American community. You can go to a function here in the Valley any given night, and you will see every one of those demographics represented at that function, supporting whatever cause it is or partaking in whatever event. I've never seen a community really support each other and embrace each other the way this valley does. It's a beautiful thing to see. And as a result, you meet so many people
right
from so many backgrounds. It's, everybody is so interesting because I find most everybody here moved here from somewhere else.
Right.
It's certainly, maybe not so much the younger generation, but our generation, most everybody is a transplant. So everybody's got the best stories and they're just so interesting. And it's amazing what people will tell you over a glass of wine. They'll just, tell you all kinds of crazy things about who they are and where they've been and what they've done. And it's awesome.
Yeah, I love it out here. I've, like I said earlier, I've been coming out here for 3 years, and everybody's just so cool. There's like a very welcoming vibe always, there's not a lot of ego for most of the buyers out here, which is awesome. Like you kind of just get to talk to people and everybody's just very excited, saying, hey, what do you have in the bag today? What are we drinking? What are we tasting? Let's taste something new. And which, I love the wines in our portfolio, which makes my job easy.
Right.
I'm not ever trying to push something on anybody. They're all wines that I would drink, but people are just very welcoming. It's always like a breath of fresh air. I always feel relaxed when I'm here.
Good.
I'm
happy to hear that.
I really do.
I find that people they're happy to be here. Most people are here because they want to be here.
Right.
This isn't Casper, Wyoming, right? You didn't get transplanted here, because you got a great job offer or something. I don't know. It's just, it's a joy to be out here. And look, I never get tired of this view. I feel like everything kind of almost looks like make-believe out here. The sky is so blue, the grass is so green, the people are so nice. When we moved here from Napa, my husband, who grew up there, he was like nervously skeptical of why everyone was so damn happy here. He's like, what are they giving these people? Why are they all so smiley? And because it wasn't like that where we lived.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's pretty nice to live out here. And
right.
He's like, I don't know. I don't trust these people.
How long did it take?
Not long. I mean, he was pretty well acclimated within 6 months and he was like, I love it here. So...
I want to switch hats a little bit here with you because, again, this is another reason I was so excited to talk to you, is that you've worked in, basically at this point, like every different facet of the wine industry. So I'd love to pick your brain a little bit and go back to when you were working in sales. Oh. And because you did that for, how long were you in sales for?
Almost 10 years.
Okay, yeah. So you've had a lot of experience in the field. And you were a buyer before you moved in. So you've been on the buying side, moved into sales, and then became a part of a retail wine shop, eventually took over the business. So you've been on all these different sides, which is awesome. But try to go back to the time when you were moving into sales. And I'd love to pick your brain, again, with the same type of question that we did for the retail wine shop. I just think there's a lot of insights into the learnings of people. I myself have a lot of learnings from day one when I started this job to where I am now. And I'm obviously still learning and growing in every aspect that we're doing. But I have a lot of advice I'd go back and give myself for sure. But I'm curious to see what you think. What's some advice that you would give to yourself going back to day one, getting into sales in the wine industry?
Be relentless. You can't give up. It's a buyer's job to say no, I think, to a certain extent. And in sales, it's your job to take that no and turn it into a yes. I think it was said to me once, the hardest door to walk through is your own. Because when you don't technically have to be anywhere, but you have to be everywhere, leaving the house in the morning can sometimes be the hardest thing to do, right? Because you can sit down at your computer and you can start writing emails and you can start, sending out appointments and putting in orders. And next thing you know, it's 1:00 in the afternoon and you haven't seen one account yet.
Yeah.
And so I find organization is paramount.
Crucial.
Yeah, it's crucial to good sales. You have to have your day planned out because, like I said, if you don't, it gets real easy not to go anywhere. And persistence is key. And then also kind of that awareness and understanding time is money. And if you've called on an account 6 times and they've not bought something from you at that point, use that time to call on someone different,
I mean, that's in its own is such a great topic right there too, right? Because I was just listening to some podcasts the other day, some guy who owns like a big company now, but they do a lot of sales, more B2B stuff. But like, I don't know what study specifically he was mentioning, but he was like, it normally takes about 7 contact. Well, I'm sorry, what's the reference he was saying? It's 7 points of contact for someone until they buy from you. I was like, huh. And I think that sometimes things like that are helpful too, because then if you're on like number 2 or 3, having a frame like that is helpful so you don't get burnt out or frustrated.
Frustration.
Like you're just kind of like, oh, no, this is just part of it. Like this person isn't gonna, it's great if you can establish a relationship with someone on the first or second try and they start buying wine from you immediately and then you can just run with that. But I heard that the other day and I was like, man, that is actually super helpful because it helps to reset to make, no, okay, this is just part of the process.
Right.
If I'm on time, 3, 4, or 5, no, if the average is 7, what does that mean? That you have, so with some people it's on the first time or second time, and with some people it might be on the 10th or 12th time.
Yeah.
So what, it is hard to be like, you know what, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I'm going to stop investing so much time here when I can go see some other people and start building a connection there.
Well, and
it's hard to decide which way to go, right?
It's relationships. The whole thing about sales is relationships. And now being on the other side of the bar again, when I've got a big order that someone is placing for a wedding or, wine, everybody's got wine and everybody's got good wine. Who am I going to partner with on that event? It's going to be who I have the relationship with, right? When it comes time to pick a wine club wine, who am I going to partner with? The person I see once every 6-7 months? No. I'm going to give someone the business who's consistently slinging the bag, showing up, engaging, and bringing me things that they think will work.
Right.
I think the hardest thing for a rep to recognize is the potential for business there. If you are calling on an account and you look at their wine list or their shelves and the only thing you see is RNDC, Southern, and Breakthrough Beverage, you can pretty well establish that you're not going to get in the door.
Right.
That account is pretty well locked up. And I've heard so many times from buyers, and this is just something that floors me, I only want to work with 3 or 4 suppliers. I work with over 70. Because why would I turn my back on fabulous wine and amazing reps and partnerships because I want easier invoicing and bill paying like that? I find that, first of all, that's not my job. My job as a wine buyer is to taste the wine,
right,
and to meet with people and to see what their portfolio is about and taste new and exciting things. And so, I think it's such a detriment to a business when the buyer says, I don't want to work with another rep. I don't want to open another account. Okay, well, that's probably not anywhere you want to be anyway. Right. Because they're used to working with the guys that have the big deals and, they can kind of squeeze.
It's tricky. And because sometimes I have empathy for that too. I try to have empathy for that in a lot of scenarios too, where you just see that what happened during COVID and then post-COVID is that, everybody's so understaffed that a lot of positions have been kind of meshed into one, and AGM is now, now all of a sudden the wine buyer, and there isn't a somm position anymore. So they have so you do get also, it's like, man, I'm just trying to make this easy. I need to make it easy. I don't have time to be doing all this. I need to be doing schedules and dealing with the staff, and I'm also kind of unofficial HR over here. And I just, so I think there are a lot of scenarios where that's a situation, so I try to be empathetic to that. But I also see there's other scenarios where yeah, man, aren't you excited about this job? Don't you want to kind of taste some new wines and try some new things? And obviously I don't say it like that, but that's why we got into it, right? I'm passionate about the job. I like learning about wine. I like meeting new people.
And I think that speaks to the importance of the wine or the beverage manager's position, the guy who's the HR, AGM, schedule maker, wine buyer. Is he also the chef? No, because that's not something that just anybody can do. Right.
I mean, I immediately thought of one person when you said that. It's definitely the exception to the rule.
Okay, but you get it.
Right.
Most of the time, you don't want a part of the business to suffer to the point where, yes, you can be understaffed, but that doesn't mean that the cleaning crew all of a sudden is now, dinner service.
Yeah.
There have to still be standards, I think. And so,
100%.
Yes, and COVID changed a lot of that. But, you can tell me you don't immediately know when you walk into a place and take a look at the wine list that either the rep wrote it or the barback wrote it.
Right.
I mean, where they're somebody who doesn't know anything. And I certainly don't mean to be disparaging to barbacks. You guys are awesome. But, when there isn't that focus or care and consideration,
right,
you can tell.
Right. It's not their trade. It's not what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. And it's if you wouldn't give the same concern to your beverage program that you do to your food menu, then you're doing a disservice to all of it.
Yeah, I agree. You know what, I have to say this too, and I'll probably get some heat for it if anybody listens to this part, but I really don't see the rise of consulting somms or consulting beverage directors who are making programs and they're not even there. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen who does the wine program there? Oh, it's somebody, so and so. They're in San Francisco. It's oh, are they here? It's oh no, they never come down here. Oh, interesting. Okay, and sit down, have a glass of wine at the bar. So what's up with this wine? It's I don't know. And I'm just in my mind, I'm how this is the biggest disservice to what we're trying to do here. This is the opposite of what we need. This is another reason for why people are turning away. Because some person who's not even in the space is writing up a list, and obviously the people that are there don't really know it,
right?
So they can't speak to it,
right?
How are you going to get enthusiastic behind that program and get people to buy those wines if you don't have somebody who's front facing and center, developing a relationship and telling people why they should buy those wines?
Right.
That is insane to me, and I get it that it's so hard to find talent these days. And I mean, man, you gotta have somebody who's if you have wine, you have beverage and food basically, right? And then like within the beverage part, you have your wine, your beer, your cocktails, whatever it is that you're doing. You need one person in each of those categories who can speak to the things on your menu. You wouldn't have a food menu over here and be like, man, that dish was amazing. Like who made up? Oh, I don't know, some chef from, I don't even know where he's from. Like,
I don't know. But that's my point exactly.
Right?
Yeah, my point exactly. You can't focus on one element and expect every element to thrive if every other element's being neglected.
Right.
It's so true. So I've done beverage programs for restaurants around town, and I do the staff training, ongoing staff training, where, we talk about, we taste the wine, we taste it with the food, we talk about what wines we would pair with that. We talk about the flavor profile. And so if somebody says they normally drink something that tastes like citrus and flowers, what wine out of, the whites would you recommend for that? Because what it's come down to, and what we keep saying is it's the experience, right? It's the experience you want to give people. And it's, there's been studies that have come out that say people will vacillate between going to a restaurant that has great food and bad service, and they'll support that, versus the next year, they're more interested in, I'll go to a restaurant where I'm really well taken care of. The food, it's so-so, but the service is top-notch.
Right.
And people will prioritize those things.
That's so interesting. Yeah, for sure.
And so obviously the secret sauce here is give it all to them. Give them the service, give them the experience, give them the quality.
Right. I mean, that's the business you're in.
That's the business you're in.
Right. So yes, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
Well, and you kind of have to like people. I mean, that shouldn't fall on deaf ears either. Like, don't get into this if you're not a people person. This is
hire somebody who is.
Hire someone who is.
I've said that before too. Like just like you were saying before, you shouldn't be the chef and the wine buyer and the invoice and the HR and there's like a crazy. I can think of one person who does it all. And you're a boss, but if you're not a people person and you want to think about big picture operations or other things, hire somebody who's great at that, who can do that for you. Just like you should hire somebody who is younger and who's enthusiastic about wine, and there's somebody there who can kind of guide them in the right direction. You should have that too, which a lot of people do a really great job at, right? There's a lot of mentorship out there that has to continue full force too. So to get people stoked on wine, get them excited on it again. And
that's my philosophy too. I don't, when I hire people for the team, I'm not looking for master somms. I'm not looking for people with, a bunch of post-nominals and credentials. I hire the personality. I can teach you the wine. The wine I can teach you, right? This is all a learnable thing. I can't teach you personality. I can't teach you hospitality. Either you have it or you don't. And I think that's so paramount for creating that environment that we're talking about. Is first and foremost, they have to be really genuinely happy, good, hospitable people. And then any shortcoming they have with the knowledge, you make up for that end, right? You teach them. But if you've got someone who knows everything about every wine, but they're a scowly, miserable human, what difference does it make?
Right.
Their encyclopedic knowledge.
Right. Nobody wants to talk to that person.
Nobody wants to talk to them anyway.
Right.
Everything I ever wanted to know about malolactic fermentation, please, I don't care.
It's so funny. That was like what got me into wine too on a more serious level too. And I was working in San Francisco, and I was working at Aqua. It was 2-star Michelin at the time, and some of the somms there. So we had a maitre d', and then we had a couple somms, and every now and then they would also like kind of interchange with each other. But it was just it was. Of course, they had wine knowledge, and you knew that, but it was more about how they maneuvered the room, how they greeted people, how they made people feel. They had a great memory about what their preferences were, who they came in with. There's some people who were they were very, very good at that. I have a horrible memory. I'll remember what you drank like 3 years ago, but then I just forget names and stuff. But these people were like, oh, you came in with Mr. Smith, 3 weeks ago. How's he doing? And they had this last time and they enjoyed this. So they don't like that. Like really good guest notes and just managing all of that. And to me, it was just really, really great hospitality personified. And that to me was what the wine person always was supposed to be. It wasn't who's the nerdiest, who can pass every test, who can name every data point in this appellation and this, and like, that's cool, but is that, you know, I never really saw it that way. And I feel like in a certain way in recent times, it's been shifting towards that. And I don't know if that's necessarily helping our cause here.
No, you know, I think the glamorization of Psalms, which is great, fine, but at the end of the day, we're waiters. You know, our job is to take care of guests on the floor, and all of the other technical stuff that we know is not to be braggadocious. It's not, you know, to use as a bludgeon against those who don't know, right? You know, like, look at me and look at how smart I am. It's that those are tools that you should use in order to match make someone with a wine. And anything beyond that, you know, notion of the great I am because I'm a sommelier and I passed a test, it's one of the greatest disservices to the industry, because I think a lot of us got too big for our britches and felt like we, you know, were in this very elite group of people who had passed these very difficult exams, and somehow that made us, you know, far superior to anybody else on the floor. Simply not true. Yeah, it's super interesting. You know, I mean, that being said, I think that people are turning away from that, right? Those people are like very, they're very interested in kind of bringing people up in the industry, and you know, there's a lot of camaraderie, obviously, in the industry. Like, that's one of the biggest things I miss about it. So I think we're doing a good job about that. But yeah, that's just, it's interesting. It's interesting how it's shifting, you know, and obviously just because of, I don't know, they're so different. There's like different levels to it. So like people who are in fine dining and who actually have maitre d's and psalms, and they have the operating budget to have those positions. It's different than somebody who doesn't. Right. And the people who have like the one manager who has to do everything and take care of the beverage program. It's like, it's I feel for both of them, right? Sure. Like it's very difficult, but at the end of the day, I think hospitality is probably the most crucial component in just getting people excited on what we're doing here and welcoming them into our worlds is where everybody wins. Yeah. Katie, we're going to taste some wine, if that's okay with you. Yeah. I'm going to blind taste you on some wine, actually. I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but we're doing it. Just to set the stage, it's a great segment for what we're talking about. We don't need a full breakdown of a tasting grid. You're such a great taster. I think what will be fun about this is just seeing how you break down the wine. What are the most important things to you that stand out about the wine? Maybe like right away some things that's telling you what it's not, and what it is and why, and kind of just take it from there. And so humbling. There is nothing more humbling on the planet than the blind tasting party trick. Okay,
we're doing it. Let me grab it real quick. Okay, here we go. Okay, one for me. I'm going to put this back here, actually. Put this off to the side. Okay. You can break it down however you'd like. Okay. I'm also going to keep you on a timer here so it's just like concise. You have 60 seconds to break down this wine. Yes. 60 seconds. Oh my God. Yes, 100%. Okay. So you can start whenever you're ready. Tell us what you think. All right. I love the nose. It's crisp, it's citrusy, there's some minerality. Oh yeah, like kind of wet, stony, lemon, lime, a little kind of pithy grapefruit. Super fun texture, little petrol-y on the finish. And the mid palate's great. The finish is great. What do you think it's not? It's not a New World wine. I wouldn't. So like if I was going to say it's got to be some. Why is it not a New World wine?
it just tastes cold climate to me, and it tastes, there's so much minerality in that it just seems...
By cold climate, what do you mean?
So...
Like not as expressive, not as aggressive in the glass, lighter alcohol?
Higher acid.
Okay.
Just that high-toned fruit.
Okay.
Where I find, warmer climates tend to be more stone fruit, tropical, more luscious, riper. This is just that really kind of zippy, high-toned, like a little more electric, as opposed to the fleshy, more succulent kind of fruits. Yeah, wow. What else am I going to say about this? So in tasting this, basically, for me, as opposed to doing the method of deduction where I'm trying to figure out what it is, what I look for when I taste wines for the shop is not what I like and what I don't like. Like, that is not my job. My mentor taught me that very early on, when I made the egregious mistake when he asked me during a blind tasting what I thought of the wine, and I told him I liked it, and then he proceeded to rake me over the coals and tell me he didn't give a good, what I liked and didn't like. The question was, tell me about the wine.
Right.
And so for me, it's, looking at the body, the acid, the dryness, but most importantly, looking at a sense of place, looking at the seamlessness, looking at the integration of flavors across the palate. Like, those are the things that I want to look for, that I can be really objective about, that don't have anything to do with whether or not I like the wine, right?
I love that. Yep.
Because listen, there's a lot of wine I carry in here that I wouldn't drink, but is it a well-made wine for the price? Is it something I know someone will like? Regardless of whether or not it's my cup of tea or not, it doesn't matter. I have to look for, is it a good wine? Is it a good price?
Does it represent that place well?
Totally.
It might not be your personal preference.
Exactly.
But it is for somebody.
This is my personal preference, though. I will say it. This is delicious.
This is super good right now.
So I'm going to go to, I'm going to say like, this tastes like a Gruner to me. I think, and I'm not even going to say, I think this is like classic Austrian Gruner. I think I get a little of that white pepper, which is, the lemon, the lime, and a little of that white pepper kind of speaks classic Gruner. The minerality, that kind of almost a little schisty. Sounds so stupid, but it's true. It's got the tension. So if I'm going to get like super fine...
Yeah, where in Austria would you say, if you had to fine tune it?
I'm assuming I'm warm, or you would have been like, let's try a different country. So let's see. Let's say, that finish. Wachau, Smaragd.
Nice. Let me show you what we have.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm scared. You're like, it's a Chablis. And especially like the finish is a little, like I said, it's a little petrol-y, but it's also a little glycolic. Like I get a little of that glycerin kind of thing on the finish, which I wouldn't get off of like a Chardonnay or even a Chenin.
You are absolutely correct. It is a Gruner Veltliner. It is from Kremstal.
Oh, it's a Kremstal.
But you're right there. I mean, you nailed it. Oh! Yeah, nice work.
Holy. Oh. Wow. Okay.
That's super good. That's super fresh. It's zingy.
So fresh. Yeah.
It's very peppery. It's delicious. We visited her actually last year. That's Silke Buchegger. She's the winemaker. She's amazing. We're picking up a bunch of new wines from her. She's killing it in Kremstal.
Yeah, that's delicious.
Yeah. Perfect.
That's delicious. Okay, well, I don't have
nice work.
I don't have to wear the cone of shame.
No, you got it.
Oh my God, that makes me so happy. Yeah, okay.
Well,
That doesn't happen all the time.
No, you know what? But you nailed it. I mean, it was zingy, the pepperiness, the fruit components, the minerality, everything that you were saying about it was great. And I guess some Gruners do get a little bit of petrol, right? Because there is a little bit of that in there, which is...
I get a little on that finish,
Yeah,
that little
yeah.
glycerine kind of...
And what took you to Gruner versus Riesling, for example? I think Riesling is very common for petrol, right?
Oh, yeah, because it didn't have that kind of petrol. And it
Right.
didn't, and it wasn't... I didn't get the RS off of this. I didn't get the same kind of acid. I didn't get the slate that I would, attribute to a Riesling. And Riesling just typically, to me, it fires in a different part of my mouth. The acid.
Yeah.
The acid hits the roof of my mouth on a Riesling like a rocket.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if there is a little RS, and regardless of the designation, where Gruners always kind of hit me kind of like back here, and so that's the big telltale. But it wasn't. This was more of that petrol, like glycerin kind of textural.
Interesting, yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to aroma.
Gotcha. Cool. Nice work.
Thank you.
You nailed it. We are perfect timing right now. Your shop is about to open for business. It is 9:58 a.m. Is there anything else that you want to finish with? Anything that we didn't get to? Anything that you want to add? Anything that you're super passionate about in the industry, or did we hit most of the points that we wanted to get to?
Make wine approachable. Make wine fun. Make wine accessible to people. Give people the experience that made us fall in love with wine. And that is that unforgettable aha moment where you realize this is alive. And unlike a cocktail, unlike a beer, what's in a bottle is so dynamic and so ever evolving and so changing, and was touched by so many hands that gave a crap about what this ended up to be. That is the life connection. And when you open this, it's tasting today unlike what it would taste like next week or next year, or what it tasted like when it went into the bottle. If that doesn't get you excited, then no, this isn't for you. Then then drink your Manhattan and love it. But wine, there's no other substance that I can think of that translates to a life evolving the way wine does.
I love it. Katie Finn, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We did it.